Hello. Hi, I'm Joanna Naden. I'm a writer, and one of the things I write are the Penny Dreadful books. And I said last week that I was going to read you a penny story a day for this time when you're all off school at home, or most of you are. So we're going to start today with the first story in the first Penny Dreadful book. Penny Dreadful is a magnet for disaster. The story itself is Penny Dreadful becomes a hairstylist. Now I'm going to do another video a little bit later on which will explain where all the ideas came from for Penny Dreadful and for this story. But for now I will just read you the story. Bear with me, I will be drinking tea during it. It's quite hard work on the throat. Also, if I stumble, it's partly because I've not read these in years, and partly because I've discovered I only own the American versions. So if you're reading along, I know some of you are going to be, if you're reading along and the words sound a bit weird, it's not because I'm getting it wrong, it's because I'm reading the American version. Okay. My name is not actually Penny Dreadful. It is Penelope Jones. The dreadful part is my dad's joke. I know it is a joke because every time he says it, he laughs like a honking goose, but I do not see the funny side. Plus, it's not even true that I'm dreadful. It's like Gran says, i.e. that I am a magnet for disaster. Mum says if Gran kept a better eye on me in the first place, instead of on Chuck Hernandez, soap opera superstar, then I might not be quite so magnetic. But Gran says if Mum wasn't so busy answering phones for Dr. Cement, who is her boss, and who has bulgy eyes like hard-boiled eggs, which is why everyone calls him Dr. Bug-Eye, and Dad wasn't so busy solving crises at the City Council, then they'd be able to solve some crises at 73 Rollins Road, i.e. our house. So you see, it's completely not my fault. Anyway, when I get up this morning, I am full of gloom, even though it's the weekend because of several things, i.e. one, my sister Daisy, who is 11 and very irritating, is doubly irritating because she's going to Monkey Madness Safari Park tomorrow and is pleased as punch. B, I'm not allowed to go to Monkey Madness Safari Park because Mum says there is too much potential for catastrophe. Plus it costs £15 and I still owe her £10.75 for the time I accidentally called India. 3, there are no sugar pops left for breakfast because Gran's cat Barry has eaten the last bowlful, even though Mum has told Gran that Barry is supposed to eat cat food and cat food only. But then it gets completely worse because the doorbell rings and it is Aunt Dee Dee who is dropping off Georgia May Morton-Jones, i.e. my cousin, because she has a crucial meeting with the New York office and has fired Katya Romanoff, who is the nanny, for not measuring up. Aunt Dee Dee is Dad's sister, although Gran sometimes says she thinks she brought the wrong baby back from the hospital because she is not at all like Dad, i.e. she does not ever wear wrinkled slacks or drink orange juice from the carton, which Mum says is unhygienic, but everyone does it, even Daisy. Plus, Aunt Dee Dee is always firing nannies for not measuring up, although Gran says not even the Queen of Sheba would measure up in Aunt Dee Dee's eyes. Anyway, Mum says she's working all day because Dr. Cement has a bunion clinic and Dad is at the council solving a crisis to do with some parking meters, so Gran is in charge. Then Aunt Dee Dee's eyes start to squint because she is not big on Gran being in charge ever since the time she let Georgia May Morton-Jones eat mud because she said it would give her the constitution of an ox. But as Gran says, beggars can't be choosers, so Aunt Daisy says, fine, but there is to be absolutely no messy play, no eating dirt, and Penelope Jones, if you even think of persuading Georgia May Morton-Jones to run away to the North Pole again, I will quite possibly spontaneously combust. There she is, being Aunt Dee Dee and posh and rude. I say I am too gloomy to run away, even though seeing Aunt Dee Dee spontaneously combust would be quite interesting. Aunt Dee Dee says, good, and then goes back to shouting into her phone at someone named Henrietta. But now I'm even more gloomy because Georgia May Morton-Jones is here all day and she's only 4.5 and not usually interested in any of my brilliant ideas in case she ruins her clothes or her fingers, which are very important because Mr. Nakamura says she shows potential on the violin. I do not show potential on the violin, although I did do Twinkle Twinkle Little Star on the recorder at the Autumn Festival last year, and I only got 5 notes wrong. So what happens is that we have to play cards all morning until Gran makes us corned beef sandwiches for lunch. Only Georgia May has cheese because she says the corned beef looks like cat food and she's not allowed cat food after last time. And I'm just thinking that I might die of boredom when the doorbell rings again. Gran says it's like Piccadilly Circus round here, which Daisy says is not an actual circus with lions and a trapeze at all. It's just a road with a lot of cars, so Gran is wrong on all counts. But this time it is Cosmo Moon Webster, i.e. my best friend, even though he is a boy and exactly a week older because neither of those things are his fault. And amazingly, he has no hair. There he is, with no hair, and there's Gran. Heavens to Betsy, Cosmo, says Gran, what happened to you? Because normally Cosmo has hair that's even longer than mine. Cosmo says, it's because of the lice. What's happened is that Cosmo's mother, who's called Sunflower, even though her real name is Barbara, does not believe in chemicals or killing insects, so she's tried to persuade the lice to leave by using a special chant. But the lice have not been listening, and instead they multiplied like crazy, and Cosmo's head was very itchy. So Sunflower said he had to get it cut, but she could not do it because A, her scissors are lost from when we used them as divining rods to find water under the roundabout, and 2, hair is a sign of strength and she cannot be the one to sap his powers. So he has been to hair today and Shaniqua Reynolds has cut it all off for £15. And that is when I have the first brilliant idea, which is to become a hairstylist. Because I've worked out I only need to do 1.5 haircuts to pay Mum back for calling India, and then I'll be able to go to Monkey Madness Safari Park with Daisy. And Aunt Dee Dee did not say no hairstyling, so it is fine. So then, me and Cosmo go into my office, i.e. my bedroom, and write a list of all the people we can give haircuts to. And Georgia May comes too, because Gran wants to watch Animal SOS, which is a TV series where animals are almost always dying, but then they don't, and it's miraculous. And Georgia May is not allowed to watch TV unless it's the Maths channel. By the time we've finished, we have 5 people on our list, i.e. 1, Gran, B, Barry the cat. Even though he's a cat, we'll still charge £15 because he's very hairy and the part on his bottom is tangled from when he sat on a piece of Cosmo's chewing gum. 3, Daisy. 4, Bridget Grimes, who's in our class and has very long hair that actually reaches her waist right down here. And she's always swishing it and saying, my hair actually reaches my waist, Penelope Jones. But Mum says it needs a good cut. E, Brady O'Grady, who is also in our class, but he has his head shaved every week, sometimes with patterns in it, so it will be an easy job. And Cosmo has made a notice out of the back of my Dogs of the World poster and a glitter pen, and it says, get your hair cut here. Can you see that there? Which looks really eye-catching, even though Georgia May points out it's the wrong kind of hair. But I say the first rule of business is being eye-catching, not spelling correctly. So we put the poster up on my door and wait. And then what happens is that Daisy comes out of her bedroom with Lucy B. Finnegan, who once got her finger stuck in the drain in our bathroom sink, to see what all the fuss is about. And Daisy says, Penelope Jones, you are a moron if you think anyone will let you cut their hair. And Lucy B. Finnegan says, you spelled hair wrong too. And then they are killing themselves laughing. So we decide to go to the shop to do our haircuts because it is too distracting with all the noise at home. But when we get to the shop, I realise I've totally not got any scissors because they're in the kitchen in the off-limits drawer after I used them to cut up an old curtain for an emergency rope ladder. only it wasn't an old curtain after all. And so I'm like a wizard without a wand. Cosmo says we need to borrow some from somebody, and I say maybe we can ask Mrs. Butterworth at the shop, because even though she's always saying stuff like, I've got my beady eye on you, she also has a moustache. So I think we can offer to cut it in exchange for the scissors and our collateral, which means our money, which is a £1 coin that Cosmo found in his pocket. The general store sign says, only 2 St Regina's students allowed. But it's okay, because Georgia May's not at St Regina's. She's at the Greeley Academy for Girls. So when we go in, Mrs. Butterworth cannot say a thing except for, Penelope Jones, does your mother know you're here with Georgia May Morton Jones? There's Mrs. Butterworth, and you can just about see her moustache as well. And I say, no, but my gran does, which is almost true, because only just a minute ago I said, goodbye, Gran, we're going to the store to cut hair for money, and she said, super. Although I'm not sure if it was to me or because a hamster had just not died miraculously on the television, but I did not decide to find out, so off we went. Mrs. Butterworth does not ask if Cosmo's mother knows where he is, because Cosmo's mother is always saying how she believes in freedom and self-expression, i.e. Cosmo's allowed to do what he likes so he can learn to be responsible, etc. You can tell Mrs. Butterworth does not believe in freedom or self-expression, but she does believe in haircuts, because what she does say is, it is about time you had your hair cut. It was hard to tell if you were a boy or a girl, Cosmo Moon Webster. Cosmo says, I've got other evidence. But Mrs. Butterworth does not want to see the other evidence, nor does she want to lend us scissors in exchange for cutting her moustache, which she says is not a moustache at all, and she'll be reporting me to my mother for saying it is. So then we don't have any scissors, and I'm already in trouble, and we've spent our collateral on licorice sticks and are chewing them on the wall outside, when we see Bridget Grimes riding her bike down the pavement. She says, what are you doing loitering, Penelope Jones? There she is, riding her bike down the pavement. And I say, we're not loitering, we're giving haircuts, only we don't have any scissors. Can we borrow some and cut your hair? It's only £15. She says, absolutely not, and I would not do that if I were you, Penelope Jones, which is what she's always saying, because she's the star student in our class and our principal, Mr. Schumann's favourite. But luckily, Georgia May Morton Jones says, you shouldn't be riding on the pavement, Bridget Grimes. It's against the law and you will be arrested and put in prison. And Bridget Grimes shuts up. And I'm glad that Georgia May Morton Jones came after all, because it's quite useful knowing a lot of rules sometimes. But we still don't have any scissors. And then Cosmo sees Brady O'Grady coming out of the butcher's shop with Mrs. O'Grady, who has a tattoo of a heart and a dagger on her arm. And it is obvious that he has quite recently had all his hair shaved off, even the cross which was there before, and so he won't need it done again for at least 3 days. But this gives me another brilliant idea, which is that even though we don't have scissors, Dad has an electric razor, and I am not even banned from using it yet. So we go all the way home again. The razor is amazing. It's called the Silent Trimmer and has 3 lengths and 2 speed, i.e. fast and super fast. On the ad it says the closest shave, and I know it's true because Aunt Dee Dee wrote the ad. Cosmo says, have you ever used it before? And I say, no, but I've watched Dad about a gazillion times and it cannot be that hard because Dad's not good with machines, e.g. the DVD player, which he still does not know how to use after 2 years. But Cosmo says we should test it first, so we decide to try Barry because he can't complain, and also he's very hairy. Cosmo says he will be in charge of the trimmer because he is a week older and also a boy, and boys are better at machines. But I remind him about A, Dad and the DVD player, and B, that Sunflower is always getting onto him for saying sexist stuff like that, and 3, that it is more my razor than his, so I will do it. But I am soon regretting it, because when I shave the top of Barry's head, he scratches me on the nose, and I am mortally wounded. There you go. There is Barry scratching Penny on the nose, and there is his shaven head. Cosmos says that it would not have happened if he was in charge, and that I am too injured to go on. But I say it's fine. I'm like animal SOS and will miraculously not die. But I decide that I've trimmed enough of Barry, plus he has hidden himself inside the dishwasher, and I am not allowed to touch the dishwasher for a lot of reasons. So we should trim Gran instead. Except that when we go into the living room, Gran is fast asleep. Cosmo says we should wake her up or the trimmer will scare her, but I say it's fine as Gran will sleep through anything, even an earthquake, according to Mum, which is true, because when I accidentally blew up the oven, everyone came running downstairs and Daisy was crying in case it was terrorists, but Gran didn't even move a muscle. Plus, the silent trimmer is not noisy or we will get our money back, according to Aunt Dee Dee's ad. And Cosmo is amazed, because Gran really does not wake up, even when she is bald and looks like her friend Arthur Peason. And we are all totally pleased, except that then I remember that I've only done one haircut, which is not enough to pay Mum back for the India phone call, and we need to find someone else. So we are racking our brains trying to think of people, but all we can think of is me, and I don't have any money. And then I noticed that Georgia May Morton-Jones is not racking her brain at all. She is not even in the living room. And then I'm worried that a catastrophe has happened, i.e. she's been kidnapped by international gangsters. But Cosmo says that statistically you're more likely to be killed by a donkey than get kidnapped by international gangsters. And he is half right, because she's not been kidnapped or killed by a donkey. She is in the kitchen, and so is the silent trimmer, and she has silently trimmed her head and is now as bald as Gran and Arthur Peason. There is Georgia without her hair. Cosmo says that it is actually great news, because now Aunt Dee Dee can give me £15 and I will have made my fortune. But I am not entirely and completely sure, because Aunt Dee Dee is always droning on about how Georgia May Morton-Jones's hair is the envy of the Greeley Academy for Girls because of how it is so curly. And then Georgia May Morton-Jones starts to cry because Barry is chewing the hair on the floor. So then I have my last brilliant idea, which is to glue the hair back onto Georgia May Morton-Jones's head. Only when we've finished, Georgia May Morton-Jones's head does not look like it did before the silent trimmer. It is quite a lot of different lengths, and there is a big bare spot on the top where we ran out of hair because Barry ate some, plus some more blew into the back garden. And Georgia May starts to cry again, and that is when Gran wakes up, and Daisy comes downstairs, and Mum and Dad come home all at once, which Cosmo says is a conspiracy, but it is not. It is a coincidence, and they are not the same. I've checked with Mr. Schumann. Anyway, a lot of things happen then, which are: 1, Mum turns slightly pale. B, Gran sees herself in the mirror and thinks all her hair has fallen out like Arthur Peason's, and Dad has to sit her in front of Chuck Hernandez, soap opera superstar, for half an hour to calm her down. 3, Barry does a choky noise because he's got some of Georgia May's hair stuck in his throat, so Dad has to pull it out like on Animal SOS, and so Barry miraculously does not die. Then Mum says, "Oh, merciful heavens, what are we going to tell Aunt Dee Dee?" And I say, "Well, you can tell her it wasn't me because I only did the gluing part." And Dad calls me Penny Dreadful and does the honking goose laugh. And Mum turns even paler and says, "If you cannot say something helpful, Gordon, then don't say anything at all." Then Cosmo says, "I've got something helpful to say, i.e. we can glue a hat on the hair so Aunt Dee Dee won't see the bald spot." And Dad says that's not a bad idea, but Mum is not so sure and tells Cosmo it's high time he went home. But then Mum doesn't have any better ideas, so she finds my old policeman's helmet to put on Georgia May Morton-Jones. Only Georgia May has been lying on the floor sobbing, and she has superglued her head to the carpet. So Cosmo says it's either the hair or the carpet that must be chopped off and sacrificed. Mum says, "I thought I told you to go home, Cosmo Moon Webster." But in the end, she decides to sacrifice the hair after all, So she gets the silent trimmer and shaves Georgia May again. And that is when Aunt Dee Dee walks in. There you go, you can see what's happening, and you can see Aunt Dee Dee's legs in the doorway. At first, Aunt Dee Dee does not say a word, which is when Dad has a brilliant idea, i.e. to get the vacuum to suck up the clippings. So me and Cosmo and Daisy and Gran all whiz out with him in case it is very heavy, and also because of him not being very good with machinery. And then we do not have to listen to Aunt Dee Dee shouting, which is mostly about how Georgia May will not be allowed to be a princess in the Greeley Academy for Girls ballet recital because they all have to have regulation buns, and now she will have to be a bee and wear a furry helmet like Phoebe Patterson-Parry, who everyone knows has 2 left feet. Cosmo says that would be a brilliant way to make money, having 2 left feet, because you would be a phenomenon and people would pay to look at them. And Dad says, "Did I ever tell you I could have been a ballet dancer if I hadn't met your mother?" And then he does a pirouette and knocks over a bottle of grape soda, which is when Cosmo decides it's time to go home after all. And now I am doubly gloomy, because no one paid me for their haircuts, not even Gran, because she says no one will sit next to her at the bingo except Arthur Peason now. Plus Mum says I owe Dad $45.99 because the silent trimmer is not at all silent anymore and it cannot trim either, mainly because it is clogged with superglue. And Aunt Dee Dee says no, Dad cannot get his money back because it is user error. So I am not allowed to go to Monkey Madness Safari Park tomorrow after all. Daisy says, "It is all your fault, Penelope Jones. You are such a complete moron." But it is not my fault. I am just a magnet for disaster. And that's the end of story number 1. Thank you for joining me. I will be back tomorrow with another Penny Dreadful story. And if you really like that book and you want to read the rest of it, or you want to read any of the others, there is a little link below which tells you where you can get the books. Bye, see you soon.